This is my audience. Can you fix it, Elder?
¿Está grabando ahorita?
Yeah. All right, so today we're gonna talk about, I'm gonna teach you guys a little bit about Mary Wollstonecraft. Whoever doesn't know, or whoever doesn't know who that is, she was a feminist from Great Britain back in the late 1700s. She died at 38 years old, giving birth to her second child. Was very common back then. She also was a very well-known author in the time, which wasn't very common within women because women were not educated back then. The only education they knew was to be servant of a man, right? The man that they were married. So let's go ahead and start. So she wrote a book. It's called, her most famous book, A Vindication of the Rights of Woman. So in this book, Mary basically wants to show all women that they can be independent. Even if they're married, doesn't matter what they're doing, she wants all women to be educated, or she wants all women to want to be educated. So the purpose of her book was to motivate women. But many women in that time, they didn't know anything other than just be servants, right? She was taught, since they were 8 years old, all women in Britain were taught how to be good wives since they were 8. That's all they knew. And many people were against her because she wanted to be independent and nobody else wanted to be independent, right? The reason why nothing much was accomplished while she was alive is because nobody agreed with her. Okay, that's why a lot of people haven't heard about her. I actually didn't hear about her until recently. So let's talk about the people that were against her, the people that didn't help her. Her widower also wrote a book. It's a biography on her. It's called The Memoir of the Author of A Vindication of the Rights of Women. He didn't have to put her name in the title because everybody knew who she was at the time. So, Memoir of the Author, right? So in this book, her widower actually ruined her reputation because he talked about things that were not acceptable at the time in Great Britain, such as she had a very close friendship with another woman. She had multiple love affairs. She was actually married 3 times. She had 2 illegitimate child, and she attempted suicide multiple times, and he also described her agonizing death. She died 10 days after giving birth to her second child, and due to she was sick, fever, it was just agonizing, and he described it in detail in that book. So it kind of ruined her reputation at the time. There was another person. This was the person that she mainly argued and had battles with. His name is Jean-Jacques Rousseau. This was very difficult because in her book, or in multiple of her books, she talks about the education of women. This man wanted all women, or wrote about all women being educated, starting at the age of 8, but like I said, only to serve a man. That's the only thing that they knew. And I'm going to read a quote from the book, from Mary's book, responding to Rousseau. What opinion are we to form of a system of education when the author says, educate women like men, and the more they resemble our sex, the less power they will have over us? This is the very point I am at. I do not wish them to have power over men, but over themselves. The most perfect education, in my opinion, is to enable the individual to attain such habits of virtue as will render it independent. In fact, it is a farce to call any being virtuous whose virtues do not result from the exercise of its own reason. Right? So she wanted all women to be independent. In fact, when she got married with her third husband, the last one before she died, they got married and they lived in separate houses to show that even if you're married, you can still be independent of each other. Right? That's really weird even now, right? So, Mary's impact today, back then, she really didn't have an impact, like I said, because nobody agreed with her. But today, we see women the same as men, right? And any woman could do the job of a man could do the job of a woman. So, I'm going to read a quote from a website called womensuffrage.org. Wollstonecraft set invaluable precedents both as a successful professional female writer who sparred with male intellectual heavyweights and someone who struggled not only to theorize but also to embody a commitment to equality. The difficulties she faced and the overwhelming presumptuous criticism of her life and work testify to persuasive misogyny and prejudice. In the 21st century, Mary Wollstonecraft continues to remind readers that the personal remains ultimately political. Okay, so she was, well, not then, but today, anybody who has heard of her, or she was basically the founder of women's rights, we find her very important today, right? Because what she believes is what we believe today, and that's how it's always should have been, right? So that's a little bit about the background. There's a lot to talk about, but I just wanted to give you all a summary of who Mary Wollstonecraft was and what she did, what she believed, the people that were against her.